and welcome to another episode of ACX University. I'm Kat Lamberts from Audible Studios, and we're here today to talk about multicast productions. More and more authors are doing multicast productions for their audiobooks to add drama and dimension, and we're here to talk about what makes them so great. Today, I have ACX author Amy Daws and two of the narrators who brought her recent book, Payback, to life, Will Watt and Erin Mallon. Let's meet our panel. Amy Daws is an Amazon Top 25 best-selling romance novelist. She has 15 audiobooks published with over 4,500 reviews, averaging 4.6 stars. Her best-selling Harris Brothers series features duet narration and has recently expanded into a multicast. Welcome, Amy.
Thanks for having me.
Erin Mallon is an Audie-nominated and earphones-winning narrator of over 325 audiobooks who loves working in the romance and young adult genres. Some authors whose work she's been lucky enough to narrate include Kristen Ashley, Lauren Blakely, Amy Daws, Julia Kent, Helena Hunting, and Jana Aston, among many others. Erin is also an accomplished New York City playwright and producer. Welcome to the panel, Erin. Hi. Will Watt is a British voiceover artist and audiobook narrator and producer and pioneer of duet-style narration. Will's narrated titles for best-selling authors Pepper Winters, Alessandra Torre, and Amy Daws, and his classy, youthful voice can be found in commercials, video games, feature animation, and numerous audiobooks in comedy, sci-fi, fantasy, and romance genres. Thanks for joining us today, Will.
Thank you.
So, Amy, let's start with you. Tell us a little bit about your book first, and then tell us why you decided that this was a good candidate for multicast production.
So Payback is a spin-off sports romance from my original Harris Brothers sports romance series, which was one of my most popular series. Will Watt had done duet narration with Charlotte Cole for all 5 of those books. But when I got ready to release Payback, the Harris Brothers were secondaries in there, and the heroine was American, the hero was South African. So it was just like sort of this melting pot of all these different accents. And I just thought, man, I feel like this is a great opportunity for me to go beyond even duet style narrating. So I heard an audition from Erin Shedlock for my South African hero. I loved it. I've always loved Erin Mallon's voice, and my heroine was American, so I cast her. But then I needed to bring back Will Watt and Charlotte Cole because they had narrated a lot of the secondaries from the previous series, and my fans would be upset with me if I cast anybody else to narrate the Harris Brothers. So that's kind of what inspired going multicast, was just all these different voices, and yeah, it turned out really good.
Mm-hmm. So can you explain for somebody who's a little bit new to anything other than single voice narration, can you explain what duet narration is for us?
Yeah, so duet is anytime the male narrator has dialogue, the male narrator voices it, the male character, I mean. Anytime the female character has dialogue, the female narrator voices it. So no matter what point of view chapter it's in, whether it's the male or female, they kind of interject on each other's chapters. So it really is like they're talking to each other, and I like to say it's like a movie in your ears because it sounds really awesome.
I think that's probably why fans love it, because they get so attached to these characters, and to hear them talking to each other, I think, is a really unique opportunity that we have in audio.
I think it paints the picture, for them too. So
yeah, that's fantastic. Have you done multicast in the past, or was this your first one?
No, it was my first. Will and I had done, Will's kind of my producer for a lot of my books, and we had done 3 narrators on a duet that I had written. But that was a little bit, I think, less intensive. So this was definitely my first time venturing into going bigger cast.
Fantastic. So tell us a little bit, you told us about kind of why you went multicast, but tell us, as an author, what did you listen for when you cast your book?
I really wanted my South African hero to have a distinctive voice from my Harris Brothers. As much as I love Will's voice, and I could listen to Will's audiobooks all day, I felt like I needed to have a new and fresh voice. So I think that was why I decided I needed to cast multiple people for different roles.
And so with 4 actors working on this book, tell us a little bit how you coordinated all of that, keeping things consistent, working out schedules, everything like that.
I think the first thing I did was bring Will on board, and I'm like, hey, I have this crazy idea of casting 4 narrators instead of 2. What do you think? And he's like, I love it, let's do it. And so, he kind of spearheaded the production side of it. I basically cast and I communicated all the narrators my vision. Everybody got really excited. Erin, I know you were like, yeah, let's do this.
I was down.
Yeah. So it worked out really good. And then Will kind of took over for the technical side and the actual recording and stuff like that.
Fantastic. And so, Will, can you tell us a little bit, as a producer, how did you make it run smoothly? Because 4 voices is a lot.
Yeah, it's tough. It's interesting as well because it's, we're all based in different places and we're not recording in the same studio. So it was a lot of kind of emailing around and just making sure that we had like schedules matched up and things like that. Luckily, I'd worked with Charlotte, who was one of the other narrators on the series beforehand, and so we were very used to kind of like a method that we have for kind of making the duet narration work together. And I have kind of a system that I use to keep everybody in check, and so people just have to upload one audio file per chapter, so it's nice and easy. And then it was just a case of kind of like matching it in post, but making sure that the audio sounded consistent and things like that. But I think it wasn't too far out of the realms of what's ordinarily asked of a narrator. Like you're narrating, you're sending in files to a central location. Like it was, it's working with three people who were used to that sort of system of sending files in and having someone else like master them. So yeah, it was all quite smooth.
Erin or Will, you guys could probably both speak to this. Tell me a little bit about how you went about making sure that your tone was right, the voices were consistent, that you were all creating sort of one unified project.
Well, my job was pretty easy on this one because I only had the one character. So I just got to play her the entire time, which is kind of freeing in a way because usually you're balancing so many different voices and characters and keeping them consistent. And I just had to go deeply into this one person. So my job was easy. You had to play a whole bunch of people.
True. I think because this is part of a series that we've been narrating for such a long time, and I think also Amy, you have like a really consistent tone within your books, right? There's a series following like a cast of characters that are central, and so the way that it reads is quite consistent throughout. And Charlotte and I have been working on this series already for a really long time, so I guess we had that established kind of, I don't know, set of characters up our sleeves already, and so I think it was just a case of kind of like slotting Erin and Erin in. And making sure that their tone was consistent. But it sounds like, I don't know, did you guys kind of listen to the other books beforehand or anything?
I did listen to a bunch of those clips from the previous books in the series, but then I've also worked with Amy on a different series. Yep. So her writing, even though the book itself was incredibly different, her style and the tone that you have is consistent and so fun for me. So
yeah, there's definitely like a buoyancy in the way that you write. It's a very kind of like right. There's this very kind of like upbeat narrative style, even in the moments where it gets kind of a little bit sad or a little bit deeper. Like there's a very kind of Amy Daws brand on what you do, which is very easy, I find, to sort of translate into the performance. Like it lends itself easily to a performance, which is, I don't know, very easy to hear, very easy to conceptualize.
Well, it takes you on this ride as the actor. What a lot of listeners have been saying is that Amy is so good at making sexy funny and funny sexy. Like you can have this sex scene where you're laughing, but you're also feeling other things. It's really fun when you're the actor because it takes you all over the place. So you stay very present because you've prepped the book, but once you get lost in it, you never know where she's going to take you. So it's a really cool ride. Yeah.
You guys interpret it really well too, which is, half the battle. When you're casting narrators, you want someone that's going to, feel your flow, and I feel like you guys do a great job. So.
Yeah.
Thanks, Amy.
So you guys had both worked with Amy separately on different kinds of projects, but not together and not on a multicast project. So how did you guys feel going into this recording and knowing that this was sort of the first time that it was happening?
I was excited about it. I've done I've done multicasts where we're all in the same room. I've done duets where we're patched in by Skype. I've done stuff by myself. This was the first time that I did a multicast with different locations. And I really enjoyed it because I was telling Amy this, it kind of makes your imagination go to different places because I'm just focused on this one character, but he's not there bouncing his lines off of me. So I have to really imagine him there. And I found it really fun. And then later when we were doing pickups, I listened. I was just trying to do my work and do my pickups, but then I was like, "Oh, this is really interesting." And then I heard it all patched together, and I sat there. I didn't have time to do it, but I just sat there and listened. It was so great.
I love that.
And then, sorry, go ahead, Will.
I was going to say, I think for me, it's kind of a challenge anytime that you approach anything kind of new, and I think that doing a multicast thing like this, particularly as an independent producer, just sort of sat in the corner of my bedroom making audiobooks, right? Like, I don't have like a big, huge studio or anything. I don't have like a technician and a ton of staff behind me or anything, but it's always fun to kind of go into a new like paradigm, right? And to go in and figure something out. And I think that it was a really fun opportunity with this book to kind of like figure out how I would take what I'd already kind of like made up on the fly anyway to have the kind of duet style and take that to 4 people. So it's kind of a learning experience. And I think that it's kind of this, I don't know, it's kind of like a guerrilla tactic, I guess, that you have to kind of like force things to work together. And I knew that it could be done. But yeah, it was like a fun journey of exploration, shall we say.
We shall.
And Amy, how did it feel when you heard all of it come together? You had books with 2 voices before, but to have a full cast with these characters that you've been developing.
Yeah, I loved it. It felt like exactly what I was hoping for, just the old with the new, the originals with like the new characters. Because, it was a spinoff of such an iconic series for me. So, like I just felt like I got the best of both worlds with this. And like the readers were so excited for something different too. Because I think especially in romance audio, like readers are hungry for something new and different. And so I love that Multicast is growing in popularity, and I love trying new things with them. So yeah.
That's great. And I think that this book is going to be a great gateway for people to say, this Multicast was fantastic. Let me look for some more.
Yes, definitely.
Amazing. So you guys recorded totally remotely, not at all together. Nobody was patched in. Right?
I was nervous about that at first because the ones I did before were together, but I've been nothing but excited and jazzed by how it worked out. I think you can do it in so many different ways. If you have the right people and people that really understand the work and a great story, yeah.
Erin, you talked a little bit about how that changed your experience as an actor and then a listener, which is really interesting. Will, did it change how you approached it as an actor?
I've been doing it for a while already. I think so back on some of Amy's older books, Charlotte and I were working together remotely. So she lived in LA when I lived in England, and then when I moved over here to New York, she moved back to England, and so we've never quite been on the same continent. But we used to record together over Skype or over Source Connect, like some kind of how we could get together and record together. And so I'd be like waiting while she's narrating, and then putting in my lines when I need to, and then kind of aligning the 2 audio clips that we recorded separately together afterwards. And that worked really well for a while, and it had all of the consistency of 2 people reading together in a room together. And then eventually we got to a point midway through the series where for one reason or another we couldn't record together, and it wasn't viable for us to have our schedules lining up like that anymore. And at first I was kind of worried, and I didn't know how it was going to work not having the other person there to bounce off of.
I didn't know you were worried. I thought I was the only one worried.
I played it cool.
You did.
Played it cool. I was like, no, it's fine. It's going to sound amazing. Don't you even worry. But it ended up, it ended up working just fine. It is different, and you kind of lose some of the kind of like playful back and forth that you get from having another person there. But that said, it has its benefits as well. I think it took down like recording a chapter from taking about 7 hours to taking about half an hour, which is always good because we're not just talking shit in the background all the time. Yeah, I don't know. It's a different way of doing it, but it works, and I don't know. It's not too different to a lot of other things as well. If you're recording for a commercial, if you're recording for a video game, you're not there with the other people in the room with you. So
I knew when they first started recording together that they were doing it through Skype, and like he said, mid-series they had to change things, and I didn't know that, and so I'm listening to chapters, and then he just casually let it slip one day in conversations. I'm like, wait, what? You're not recording through Skype? And so, but like I listened and I couldn't hear a difference. My readers couldn't hear a difference. The reviews are still awesome. So it's awesome that, they're all talented enough actors that they can interpret the scene and the story and still like flow together when they put it all together in editing.
Mm-hmm. It definitely speaks to, how great of an actor that you guys all are. Erin, you've done some multicasts where everybody's in the same room together. We didn't have a chance to do that on this book, but can you talk a little bit about what that experience is like when you're in the same space with other actors?
Yeah, I come from a theater background, so I feel really cozy and at home there. It's interesting because you're so used to being alone as an audiobook narrator, and then suddenly you're there and everyone's around with their iPads and their stands, and you can catch people's eyes sometimes, and it becomes really fun, and it's a different level of presence, which I really like. So I love all the ways.
They all definitely have their advantages, and I will say from the producer and director side, it's really fun to watch you guys do projects like that, and to see you guys interact. And it sounds the same because you guys are such talented actors and can do anything from anywhere. But to be able to see it happen in front of you is a great experience.
Agreed.
It's interesting. I think there's this kind of, that what you're describing there, that kind of magic moment where you see it come to life. Like, I got that instead putting it together, editing it together afterwards, and like, you know, slicing people's lines together, and you hear the way that it flows, and like, it might not be how you would have, particularly if it's something where I'm splicing someone's lines with my own, and I'll have an idea of how I was thinking that they were going to respond, and it'll be different or it'll be the same, and it's really interesting kind of like hearing how that comes to life. It's kind of like assembling a jigsaw puzzle, I guess, like, and hearing how that works when you've only heard half of the conversation so far. I don't know, it's really fun. It's kind of a
That's cool.
magical little.
Have you ever like practiced a conversation before you have it? Like you're gonna talk to
Totally,
somebody
totally.
and like I'm gonna say this and then he's gonna say this and it never happens that way.
Right.
It's like the same thing.
Exactly. It's totally the same.
So Amy, while all this was going on with the actors, what was your role? Were you listening? Were you directing? Were you giving feedback? How did that work for you as an author?
I mean, for the most part, I'd say I'm kind of a hands-off author, except for when I'm bugging Will about, hey, where are my chapters? Like, I'm ready to publish. Like, let's get this going. Because I'm usually always behind on audio. I publish my ebook, and then it's like a mad dash to get the audio out because everybody's begging for it. But like, as far as, you know, how they interpret the scenes, how they read, like their voices, apart from the initial audition, I kind of let them, you know, act. Like, I let them do what they're so great at doing, which is interpreting text and dialogue and creating a story and a character. And yeah, I just think they all do a great job for me. So I don't have to do a whole lot, I feel like.
Well, and that's great because as a narrator, as an actor, you need to feel freedom. You need to feel that someone trusts you. And if I'm thinking about you all the time because I'm working on your book, so that's my connection with you all the time. If I was also thinking about all the things she wants me to do with it, and that would take me out, and I don't think it would be very good.
Yeah.
So that freedom is very helpful.
I could see that.
I always remember I was speaking to you one time about, I can't remember what it was, but I remember you saying something like, you were like, I really like people who say yes, or people who enjoy, like you were basically saying that you like people who enjoy like trying new things and taking risks and kind of, you know, trying something a little bit different or giving something a go even if you're not sure whether it's going to work out or not. And I think that kind of philosophy is kind of like pervades everything that you do, right? Like every time that you give us a new book, like I always feel like I'm completely free to kind of like have fun with it and to like have my own opinion on it and to have my own say on it, which is very refreshing. And I think that it kind of leads to having a very, I don't know, an enthusiastic end product where people have kind of like really been able to test their limits.
And collaborative, which I like. I wrote the book, but I need you guys to perform it, so it's fun.
So if we can dive into a little bit of a technical question right now, because you guys were recording in different spaces, how did you make sure that the actual sound was the same, that the room tone was the same, that, you know, nothing sounded radically different, especially with the structure of the book?
So Charlotte and I had been working together for a bit beforehand, and we're very lucky we have very similar microphones. She's actually in my old booth back in England. So we're both using Neumann microphones. She has the 103, I have the U87. So it's the same capsule, so they sound very similar anyway. Having any time that I'm working with someone else who I'm not used to their equipment, or it's not quite such an exact match, it does take a little while to kind of like tweak everything. I have a battery of effects that I tend to use when I'm mastering any audio for Audible, which includes kind of a compressor, some equalization, and some sort of standard things like that, just to kind of like get it sounding within the right range. But there's a couple of things that I put on there that kind of change the characteristics a little bit. So I always use a tube modeled a tube modeled compressor within my chain, which kind of gives it that kind of like tubey kind of sound, which kind of makes it sound slightly kind of uniform, and a couple of other effects like that it runs through that kind of shape the sound in a way that sounds similar, if not entirely the same. My noise floor, I try to keep it close to 0 as possible. So I prefer to have a very quiet background recording. I don't want there to be too much bleed or any noise or anything like that. And so that again kind of makes it easier. Like everyone can be normalized down to 0. Everybody can be kind of have a similar kind of like blank slate state. And from there, kind of that kind of helps with kind of making the characteristics sound uniform. But beyond that, because everybody's recording from a singular microphone all the way through, that makes things a lot easier. You know, you've got slight differences that you'll notice from different spaces, but after everything that I've put on them, it sounds as different as two different people's tones of voice, right? Like there's always going to be a slight difference, and it doesn't stand out. The trick is to kind of smooth it over so it sounds different, but not different enough to be distracting, or not, you know, wildly different levels or wildly different levels of processing or anything like that.
Right. And I think that those are really helpful tools. And if you know that you have those, then you don't have to worry so much about the space in the beginning.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it is very important to have like a very well-treated space. And I think I'm very lucky that everybody that we were working together, we've all got, you know, great soundproof studios that we work from. But yeah, past then, it's just a case of kind of like trying to match as much as possible and kind of playing around and getting stuck in and playing with tiny little presets for hours on end until it sounds good.
So did you guys talk with the other narrators before you started recording, just to talk about tone or characters or anything? What's that process like the real sort of nuts and bolts of it?
Yeah, we had a Skype call, right?
Yeah.
And it was the three of us, it was me, you, and Erin. And I think I just sort of talked over kind of how I wanted the files to be delivered. I think that like I had kind of like a list of kind of prerequisites that I needed in terms of like what type of file people need to send over and things like that. I'd already, Amy had sent me you guys' auditions, and so I'd used all of your auditions to kind of create kind of a template file for the processing chain that I wanted to use on everybody's voice. So I already had kind of crossed that bridge slightly before I got to having a conversation with you guys, and then it was just a case of kind of, I don't know, everybody...
As far as like tone went and the actual book, we prepared like we do every other book, like read the book, prep it, take note of anything that you don't understand, any questions you have for Amy. Erin and I touched base a little bit, but not too much, just a few little things, because they're meeting each other for the first time in the book. So there's so much discovery between them throughout, and you give us everything we need. So I didn't feel like we needed too much conversation between Erin and I.
No, and you guys have read for me before, so you know my voice and my, rhythm. Aaron Shedlock, he had more questions for me just about the South African hero because of the accent. He wanted to know socioeconomic background and stuff like that. Like, he was really into digging deep and making sure he got the right regional accent for the character, which I really appreciated, and it was kind of fun to just be like, man, okay, let's dive into this character. And so he had more questions, but that was because I think a lot of that was too because that was the first book he's read of mine. So he just kind of wanted a little bit more prep. But everybody else, you guys, you can pick it up and run. It's awesome.
South African, I think, is the hardest accent to do, and sometimes we'll get people who say they can do it, and I want to hear it. I want to hear what people can do, and okay, can you do it for me? And most of the time it's great, but occasionally there's a little bit of Lucky Charms leprechaun that comes in there. There's some Steve Irwin I get sometimes. So it's not surprising that he had a lot of questions, but I can't wait to listen to it and hear what he's done with the accent.
He did great. He really did.
So if you were talking to another author friend who said, "Oh, Amy, I think I want to do my next book as a multicast," what tips would you give them about writing and about choosing their narrators?
My books all have a lot of banter, so I think that's another reason why I've always gravitated towards duet narrating and now multicast, because I think with that banter, it's super fun to hear everybody cutting in and having conversations in the audiobook. But for other authors that are looking to do it, I mean, with multicast, it's definitely more expensive. You have more cast, more hours, more editing, so you just have to prepare a little bit for that there is more expense. And then, there's also more opportunities for setbacks because you're dealing with 4 people's schedules. So, and 4 people's health, one narrator gets a cold and, your whole schedule's thrown off. So, and the editor can't do a whole lot until they get everything in, so it's more management of more people. So there's just more opportunities for something to slip up. But luckily, we didn't really have any, slip-ups. Everybody stayed healthy. Yes. Thanks, guys.
Did your writing process differ at all?
No, I don't think when I was writing it, I knew it was going to be multicast. So, it didn't differ in any way that all my books, like I do hear narrator voices when I write. I hear Erin when my characters are being really funny. I hear Will when I'm trying to think of like a British slang to give my character. Like, oh, what would Will say? Oh, you know, like, so.
I love that I sound like moaning Myrtle from Harry Potter in your mind.
Harry? Oh, yeah, you kind of do. That's why I leave it to them. But in my head, when I'm writing, it sounds really good. So,
Good, I'm glad.
yeah. So, you know, I do kind of hear my narrators' voices and I let that inspire some of the scenes.
Well, and as narrators, we can feel that. You know, sometimes when you're working on something that was kind of never meant to be said out loud, and you have to try your best to make it like full of blood and, you know, with yours, it's like these people were always meant to talk.
Yeah.
So it feels very theatrical in a way.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And did you do anything different when you were marketing or promoting your book, or even when you were talking to your fans about it? What did you do to kind of pull out the fact that it was multicast and you were so excited about these narrators?
I mean, I definitely wanted to make a splash because I wanted this, you know, to just come out like guns blazing because it's something new and different that I was trying. My narrators helped me produce this really cute, quirky video of all four of them kind of in like square boxes like the Brady Bunch where we announce their names, and it's cheesy and fun, and it's just something that, you know, makes you smile. And I just wrote a little script for that and I sent it to them, and they just took it and ran, and like I edited all the video, and I was so glad they were so open and receptive to doing that because, you know, I'm like, hey guys, I got this crazy script. Would you just record a selfie video of you saying these words? And they're like, sure. And I think you guys got it to me in like 2 days. It was nuts because I was like, it was a last minute decision. I'm going to do it with my cover reveal, you know?
Well, the video sounds really great. Let's take a look.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey.
Hi.
Hey everybody, I'm Aaron Shedlock, a newcomer to Amy Daws and the Harris Brothers series. I'll be one of 4 narrators for her upcoming audio release, Payback, which will be a multicast narration. What is multicast narration? So nice of you to ask.
I thought the Harris Brothers series was already done. I mean, I was there for all of them. There are no more brothers. It's a complete series. I'm confused. Wait, who's Erin?
Hi guys, I'm Erin Mallon.
Wait, there's another Erin? Oh, bloody hell.
In a nutshell, multicast narration is one audiobook with 4 actors all playing different roles. I'll be dropping my South African accent on you for the hero of this sexy story. Roondewald is not your typical professional athlete man-whore. You may have read a bit about him before in Amy's short story that was featured in the Kindle Corner, but now you're getting a whole lot more.
I'm Erin Mallon, and I'm so excited to take a quick break from Amy's hilarious Tire Shop series to work on this project with these amazing actors. I'll be coming in to voice the heroine, Allie Harris, who is the cousin of the Harris brothers and lives in America, or the colonies, whatever you like to call it. The heroine has a crazy secret in this story, so I can't wait for you to all hear how it plays out.
Well, I suppose then that this isn't the end of the Harris Brothers series after all. So, I'm Will Watt, and I'm the original voice of the Harris Brothers, and that's why in Payback, I'll be doing all of the male dialogue for those cheeky Harris Brothers. You've got Camden, the pun-loving playboy we all remember from Challenge, his twin, the unforgettable Tanner from Endurance, who's totally a pervert, but in an adorable, endearing way, which I didn't realise was possible until I read him, but trust me, it is. And then there's Booker from Keeper, the quieter, more sensitive youngest of the family who falls for his best friend, and Gareth from Surrender and Dominate, the brooding older brother who has a lot of sexy secrets and a deep, soulful voice like this.
I'm Charlotte Cole, the voice narrator for loads of secondary characters. I voiced lots of characters in Amy's books, Belle, Poppy, Indy, Vi Harris, the sister to the wonderfully crazy Harris brothers. It's been so wonderful working with Will and Amy these past couple of years.
Lottie, did you know that this series wasn't even done yet? Nobody tells me anything.
Payback by Amy Daws is releasing on ebook on May 16th, with the audiobook coming a few weeks after. We need some time to create something that you're sure to love. And it is a standalone, but if you want to know all about the sexy Harris brothers, this gives you some time to listen to them.
If you want to be notified the moment Payback goes live on audio, just drop your email in the link below and get ready for a sexy Payback plan that goes seriously wrong.
Wait, so does this make us the Harris Brothers bunch? I rather like the sound of that.
But I do a really good job just always talking about every step of the audio process. The casting announcement was a big deal. Pre-order link was a big deal. And I do a good job at making sure I have somewhere to capture people. So like I have just a Google Doc that says, put in your email if you want a new release alert once this audiobook goes live. Because if they saw that video 6 weeks before the book came out, I want to have a way to get in touch with them in case they don't see the news once it comes out. So, I just did a lot of fun marketing and graphics, and and you guys helped me out a lot. So thank you.
She's good on the social media. She's on her game.
Yeah. And did you guys do anything on your own social media?
I shared everything that Amy put out there. And
Same.
I always, new releases I always talk about and post about and tweet about.
And I found that I think that you always get a lot of conversation on Facebook in particular with any of your books coming out, and I find that I get tagged in a lot of stuff, and so there's a lot of like responding to all of that, like, yes, she is great, yes, it's coming soon, yes, I'm working on it, please, give me another couple of days.
I've also used my narrators in my newsletter too. Like when we finished the Harris Brothers series, I'm like, Will, can you just record a little video of you talking about how it's the end of an era and what a joy it's been to narrate for me? I was like, just force me the words for you. But no, I was like, put in your own words, of course. But, and like, I think my readers especially really like putting faces with the narrators. For me, it works. They love my narrators. They think it's fun when they get to see them and, put a face with that voice. And so, I use them as much as I can.
Mm-hmm. I think your listeners are so devoted to your books and your characters. You kind of want to enter that universe. You want to who are these people who are behind these voices of these characters that, they've fallen in love and we've fallen in love with them.
Yes, definitely.
So what was the best part of doing a multicast project? What part did you guys find you really enjoyed as actors?
People always ask me afterwards, do you listen to the books? And I never do, because you're working on the next one, you're prepping one, or you're in the booth with the next one, and you've already read it twice because you prepped it and then you did it. So that would be my third listen, just to listen to myself, so I don't do it. But with this one, I've listened to a bunch because there's all this stuff unfolding and all these surprises. I went through the whole journey of the book, but not with these voices bouncing off of me. So that's been new and fun for this.
I think for me, editing it all together, because I edited it, I once got some advice from someone that was like, I think it was on like a LinkedIn article or something, and the advice was like, before you outsource anything that you do as a freelance creative, make sure that you're really good at it first. Make sure that you're so good that you could do it in your sleep before you outsource it. And so I was like, true to that, like I already outsourced a lot of my editing, but this is a brand new thing, so I'm going to do it myself until I'm really good at it. And I'm no big fan of editing audio. Like it's not the worst, it's just like kind of nothing time, right? Like you're just sat there like doing this very methodical thing, and I'd rather be, I don't know, making silly voices. But it was really fun, like it was really rewarding, like slotting everything together and seeing how the performance stacked up and how it all came together in a really unexpected way. Having 4 different people that you've trusted with something send something back and seeing the way that it all slots together, it was, I don't know, I said before, it's kind of like this magical kind of jigsaw moment. I think that was really fun.
Mm-hmm. Amy, were you surprised by anything when you listened to the final project?
No, I just loved it. I mean, like it's when there's 4 actors performing, I almost get caught up in the book too, and I forget that I wrote it, and I'm like, oh, this is, like I got caught up in the scene as well, like, and I was like, what's gonna happen next? Oh wait, I wrote it. But it's just because like their performances really took me on a journey, which was awesome.
How have the listeners responded?
Oh, so good. I mean, they just love it. Like best audiobook I've ever heard, like all that. Like those are the best headlines that I just want to have like engraved on my wall in my office, like real subtle, like block letters.
I think we know what we're getting you for Christmas.
Exactly.
So would you do it again? Would you do another multicast?
Yes, definitely.
Is there one coming soon?
No, maybe.
No pressure.
This would be the time to announce it, wouldn't it? No, I'm still working on the next book, and we'll see.
Amy, if you had one piece of advice for a fellow author, if you got to tell them just like one thing about doing a multicast, what would it be?
Just go for it, first of all. I mean, that's kind of obvious advice. I think, though, probably the most important is finding a good producer that can bring your vision to life, that's qualified to do the editing and, make sure that all the narrators are sending quality files so that you don't end up with a mess of files and posts that don't sound the same.
And Erin, how about if there was an actor who came to you and said, I think I want to do this multicast, but I don't know, what should I do? What would you tell them, and what piece of advice would you give them to be successful?
I would say if you can do it, definitely do it. And if you can explore the different ways to do it, you learn a lot from all of them. And I think advice would be just to have fun with the fact that you're getting to go really deep with one character usually. So you can just take that ride in a different way when you don't have to do a million accents and take care of 80 characters.
And Will, for producers, what would you tell them before embarking on the multicast journey?
I'd say try and make it as simple for yourself as possible. I'm a big believer in kind of path of least resistance kind of tactics when it comes to producing anything. And so in terms of when you're working with other people, like Erin, we work together and you're just some random person who I know from the internet and I'm asking you to do something for me, and so to make it as simple as possible is definitely better than kind of trying to put too much on your plate.
I'm a random person from the
internet. A random person from the internet, Erin. How does it feel? The more that you can do to kind of make your life easier for yourself, the better. But also from the point of view of an actor as well, don't be scared to get your hands dirty. I think that more and more we're moving into an environment where being your own, source of utility is ever more important, right? People are learning how to do more than just be an actor, more than just be a producer, more than just be an editor. And so if you can round out your skill set, it's never going to be as difficult as you thought it was going to be. It's going to be tedious, but not hard. You can do it. Try and approach everything from every aspect, every side. Get dug in.
Now that we've heard about it, let's see some of it in action. Erin and Will are going to do a little reading from Payback for us.
I burst through the airport doors and into the damp summer air of the outskirts of London. Before I even have a chance to take in the scenery, my eyes zero in on something horrendous. A big black pickup is parked by the curb, smack dab in front of the door. Standing up on the tailgate is a well over 6-foot blonde, bearded animal with a man bun, inked arms, and a grin to rival Jack Nicholson. As if his location in the bed of the truck alone isn't conspicuous enough, he's holding up a large sign that reads, "Welcome home from prison, Cousin Alice." I stop mid-stride with my carry-on clutched firmly in my grasp, and to my horror, his eyes land on me.
Alice?
The Bigfoot-looking man shouts my name loudly over the traffic, and the people walking by turn to gawk at me. I do a quick glance down the curb to see if I can lose him and hail a cab, but I know it's no use when he adds,
"Booker, it's her, it's Allie."
My eyes cut to the cab of the truck as Booker hops out of the driver's seat and makes his way toward me. His dark hazel eyes are squinting sympathetically as he pushes back his short brown hair.
"I'm so sorry about Tanner. He's a special kind of wanker."
He reaches for my bag and shakes his head like this is a normal occurrence and he's powerless against him. Tanner puts a foot on the edge of the truck bed and drops lightly to the concrete. He still has that smile as he approaches, hovering over me like a giant.
"Bring it in, cuz."
His big arms wrap around me nearly twice as he lifts me up in a bear hug.
"I told Booker I'd be able to spot you."
He ruffles my long golden hair, extracting wisps from their proper place and creating a curtain over my eyes.
"I remember that one time I shampooed this mop with mud because I told you it would help your boobies come in."
I now appreciate the protective shield of hair as my face bursts into flames. Thankfully, my boobs came in all on their own, no thanks to your cosmetology skills. I push my hair out of my face and glance down at the sign. "Prison, Tanner? Really?" He holds it up again and shrugs.
"Well, your flight from Chicago was delayed a whole day, so I had extra time on my hands."
Booker clears his throat and adds,
"Speaking of time, we need to get moving. The reception for those of us not important enough to be invited to the ceremony is in a couple of hours, and I'm sure you want to get cleaned up."
I make a half-hearted attempt to fix my hair and catch sight of Booker's dimples as he tries to conceal a chuckle at the state of me. I follow them to the truck and mumble under my breath, "God, it's good to be back."
Well, that was just a little Payback. If you want the whole story and the full cast, you're going to have to listen to the whole audiobook. Thanks so much for joining us on ACX University today. Authors, we hope you learned how you can capitalize on the growing popularity of Multicast to excite your listeners and expand your audiobook business. Producers and narrators, we hope you learned how you can get on board and use Multicast Productions to engage with other narrators and expand your network. I'm Kat Lambrix, and this has been ACX University. We'll see you next time.